Esoteric to the Srimad, Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki. Ramacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakti. Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, the Creative Impetus, chapter number 3, Rishabhadev's appearance in the womb of Maradevi, the wife of King Nabi. Text number 14. Om Ajnanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mare Kabando Matsangin Mad Guru Man Madana Mad Nistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute Asadu Sadhu Tadayan Atinicho Chatakara Hanamuncha Karachinmam Premot Katayo Spura Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you, Ian.
Thank you.
He's been our friend for a long time. And so it's in prose, so I'll just read it, and then we'll go to the word-for-word translation. There's a long purport. Kova iha te parajita parajitaya mayaya novashita paravyana vrita matir vishya visharayana vrita prakritir anupashita mahacharanaha. Synonyms. Kava. Who is that person? Iha. Within this material world. Te. Of your lordship. Aparajitaha. Not conquered. Aparajitaya. By the unconquerable. Mayaya. Illusory energy. Anavashita paravaya. Let's do that again, sorry. Anavashita paravya. Whose path cannot be ascertained. Anavrita mati, whose intelligence is not bewildered. Vishaya visha, of material enjoyment, which is like poison. Raya, by the course. Anavrita, not covered. Prakriti, whose nature. Anupashita, without worshipping. Mahat Charanaha, the lotus feet of great devotees. Dear Lord, unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be conquered by the illusory energy, and his intelligence will be bewildered. Indeed, who has not been carried away by the waves of material enjoyment, which are like poison? Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. We'll repeat. Dear Lord, unless one worships the lotus feet of great devotees, one will be conquered by the illusory energy. And his intelligence will be bewildered. Indeed, who has not been carried away by the waves of material enjoyment? Which are like poison. Your illusory energy is unconquerable. No one can see the path of this material energy or tell how it is working. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Maharaj Nabi was inclined to performing great sacrifices for begetting a son. The son might be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but such a material desire, be it great or insignificant, is brought about by the influence of Maya. A devotee does not at all desire anything for sense gratification. Devotion is therefore explained as devoid of material desires, anyabhilashita shunya. Everyone is subjected to the influence of Maya and entangled in all kinds of material desire, and Maharaj Nabi was no exception. Freedom from Maya's influence is possible when one engages in the service of the great devotees, Mahacharana Seva. Without worshipping the lotus feet of the great devotee, one cannot be freed from Maya's influence. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keba. Who has been freed from Maya's clutches without serving the lotus feet of a Vaishnava? Maya is aparajita, and her influence is also aparajita, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Daiviyeshu gunamai mama maya dharayaya. Divine energy consisting of the three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome. Only a devotee can surpass Maya's great influence. It was no fault on Maharaj Nabi's part that he wanted a son. He wanted a son like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the best of all sons. By the association of the Lord's devotee, one no longer desires material opulence. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22:54. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastri Koi, Labha Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. And Mahat Kripa Vina Kona Karme Bhakti Naya, Krishna Bhakti Dure Rahu Samsara Nehikchaya. If one is serious about escaping Maya's influence and returning home back to Godhead, one must associate with a sadhu, devotee. That is the verdict of all scriptures. By the slight association of a devotee, one can become freed from the clutches of Maya. Without the mercy of the pure devotee, one cannot get freedom by any means. Certainly, a pure devotee's association is necessary in order to obtain the loving service of the Lord. One cannot be freed from Maya's clutches without sadhu sangha, the benediction of a great devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32, Prahlad Maharaj says, Naisham matishta vaduru kamagrin sprishat yanarta pagamo yadarta mahiya sampada rajo vishekam ishkin chananam navranita yavat. One cannot become the Lord's pure devotee without taking the dust of a great devotee on his head. Padaraja vishekam. A pure devotee is nishkinchana. He has no material desire to enjoy the material world. One has to take shelter of such a pure devotee in order to attain his qualities. The pure devotee is always free from the clutches of Maya and her influence. The Prabhupada ki. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prachadide Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschachadesha Tadide. Namaste Jivananda Dasaya Vanachanide Prabhupada Valabhaya Sninasi Lavanode Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashti Patitatmanam Gyana Guru Teya Chita Harine Chakshashenam. So we are hearing the final solution for all suffering in the material world ultimately comes down to the service of the Vaishnavas. This is the primary principle and active principle of devotional service. It is described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-6, which is Savai Pumsam Paradharmo Yato Bhaktiradoksaje I Tukya Pratiyataya Yatma Suprasidati. Srila Prabhupada's translation of that verse is that the supreme dharma for all humanity at large is that by which one can attain to loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord at Hoksajay. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. The Srila Prabhupada's translation is like that, and the general conclusion of that verse is that we want to perform unmotivated and uninterrupted service. But Vishwanath takes it a different direction. He explains that bhakti itself is unmotivated and uninterrupted. She's a haituki. So actually, she's Swarat. Bhakti Devi is Swarat. And in that verse, he gives a description as to the cause of bhakti. What is the cause of bhakti in an individual? One can say that the cause of bhakti is one's sadhana, but we see that that's not the cause because we see that some people they are doing so much sadhana. Some people are getting very much bhakti, and some people are doing so much sadhana, and they're making all offenses to devotees. No one wants to be around them. So it is not that. Some people say that the cause of bhakti is the Lord himself, but that would mean the Lord is partial to some living entities and some other living entities. Oh, I'm giving bhakti to this devotee, not giving bhakti to that devotee. So we understand that the Lord isn't even the cause of bhakti. And some people say that, oh, it's the devotee. The devotee, you meet the devotee, then you get bhakti, right? Correct? But who gave that devotee bhakti? Who gave that devotee bhakti? Who gave that devotee bhakti? So the actual conclusion is that Bhakti Devi herself is Swarat. She's completely independent. So she comes upon anybody and anywhere she likes. So we can't judge devotees. That's another point. We don't want to make offenses by saying, oh, this devotee, he is such a way that we know he has bhakti and this devotee doesn't have bhakti. That's such an offensive mentality. Because actually bhakti is Swarat. She's independent and she actually comes upon someone by her own grace. So in that way, Srimati Bhakti Devi is completely independent, but Krishna gives the devotee the special permission, the special, commission that he can give bhakti to others. He can actually bestow bhakti upon someone. And so the spiritual process of realization isn't just hearing like a school. Like, can you imagine if we were able to go to college and pay get a student loan and pay at the U of A so that we can get bhakti? I mean, I would do it. If it was that simple to get Krishna consciousness, you just go take your student loan and you attend 4 years of college and now you're a bona fide pure devotee. You pass your tests, that would be really easy, but it's not so easy, is it? I was talking to Balaram Das. Balaram Das is just a personality who seems like he's been doing Krishna consciousness for trillions of lifetimes. There's never any wavering. And I've asked devotees, when he was new, was he like this? Yeah, exactly the same. They say Balaram Das has always just been Balaram. And, it seems like there's no wavering. So I asked the Prabhu, I said, Prabhu, have you always just been like a pure devotee? And he kind of giggled a little bit. And he said, we all taste our victories in Krishna consciousness. We all taste our victories. If we continue nicely, we'll taste victory over the senses and the mind. And he said, but don't think, actually, Balaram's not very, he's not known to be like a super grave type of guy, but it was very grave what he said. He said, don't think that you can become a doctorate or anything you achieve in the material world, becoming a doctorate, becoming a, great politician. It pales in comparison to becoming a true Goswami. There's nothing harder, there's no more hard work than to becoming a Goswami. So this is a very serious matter. So you can't go to the college and buy Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga is not just something you hear about and you can make notes. And some people, when they come to Krishna consciousness, they're very intellectual. And you have to like beat them for like months until they finally get out of the intellectual platform. And it's like, it's about the heart. It's about the heart. It's about the heart. It's about the key. It's about the heart. I have a guy right now that I'm talking to a lot, and he's in that stage where he's really just trying to understand all with his mind, which is good. We have the philosophy for that. But if you don't take the philosophy and put it in your heart, what question is there of actual having bhakti? And how could you become steady? How could you actually do some steadiness in devotional service if you're all in your mind? It doesn't even make any sense to the mind. The mind always wants gratification, and you're saying, no mind, no gratification. And you're going to get this blue cowherd boy with cow poop between his toes. It doesn't make any sense to the mind. The poor mind's trying to understand this stuff. It doesn't have any possibility of understanding it. But when that same mind is now filled with love and some bhakti is awakening, now all of a sudden these things start to become clear. Bhakti mam abhijananti yavanyas yasmi tatamam tatmadokyata svishate tadanantaram. Krishna says, I can only be seen as I am standing before you by bhakti yoga. And when one is purified by such bhakti yoga, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So Bhakti Devi is Surat. She is what we need to achieve this God consciousness. So when we go to approach a teacher of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna gives us the basic instruction. He says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. This is Tadvidi means first we inquire. We inquire nicely. If we don't inquire nicely, then we don't actually get nice results. So we have to learn how to inquire nicely, not inquire in a challenging way, not inquire in an arrogant way, but to inquire nicely. And we see that especially in India. Like when I go places with my Guru Maharaj in India, these nice young men, they're asking so many beautiful questions in such a humble way. Because we actually see a devotee, we should think, I want to get their mercy, not, oh, I'm better than them. How am I, in what ways am I better than them? They may be better than me at this, but I'm definitely better than them at that. This is the Maya consciousness. This is the competitive ego consciousness. So how can we make advancement? We can't get any mercy from that devotee. So we're cutting ourselves off from the mercy flow. And so in that way, we may see this devotee has something that I want. We can never get it because we've yet to actually become encouraged by that devotee. We've yet to actually see that this devotee's got a good quality. Let me associate with them and get some mercy. No, it's actually, I want to one-up them. This is Maya. Like Ashram Maharaj, he says so sweetly, he said, when we actually analyze, we can pretty much see that everybody's better than us. That's the real, vision of a devotee. We should feel I'm really the lowest devotee. But we don't so much of the time. So Tadvidi means we inquire nicely. Tadvidi pranipat means we fall down like a stick. So it's not just, you don't go to your college professor and fall down like a stick. That would be weird. They wouldn't like that. Because they're not really worthy of that type of behavior. I mean, it freaks me out actually. I knew some when I was in college, they get the students then become the professors, but then the students and you know what they're doing when they're not teachers, and it's just disgusting, horrible, degraded activities, really bad, lower than what is the general pious person would even think of. Things that I didn't even know existed, they're doing. Really dark stuff. And so then they're teaching you. So this is, this is nonsense, demon society. But the spiritual teacher, this pranipat means that I'm actually submitting myself to you. I'm surrendering. And pariprashnena sevaya, now I'm rendering service to you. By rendering service in humility and with inquiry, spiritual knowledge is awakened in the heart. You may understand intellectually the Bhagavad Gita. You may understand the certain words, certain phrases, certain shlokas, certain concepts, but can you live them? No, you cannot live them without this principle of pariprashnena sevaya. This service attitude is the principle by which the knowledge is actually awakened, which the knowledge comes from gyan to vigyan. And so this service attitude is simply based in humility. It's based in this humility. When we're humble and we serve, we can actually develop vigyan, and there's a symptom of vigyan. So, I mean, it's clear. All of us know devotees like this. We see the devotee, he knows so much. He has so many shlokas, not so much knowledge, but perhaps the behavior is still very rough. And the signature of not being realized is to judge people, to say, oh, this person's that and this person's that, and criticize. That's a symptom of complete ignorance. It's the ultimate symptom of ignorance. Why? Because Krishna explains what is real knowledge. Vidyavanaya sampane, brahmane gavihasti, shunichaiva svapakecha, pandita samadarshina. That's real knowledge. If we can see with equal vision a cow, a dog eater, an elephant, an outcast, we can understand that's a person with real knowledge. That's a person who's worthy of our service and our love and our actual devotion. So in Kali Yuga, and we're affected by Kali Yuga, the symptom is that we dress like sadhus, we look like sadhus, we talk like sadhus, but actually our behavior and our mind and our consciousness is sick because of this concept of judgment, fault find, judgment, comparing myself to others. It's a cancer. It's a cancer of the mind. So Krishna explains that if you have a spiritual master and your spiritual master is bona fide, what is the result? Yajgatana punar moham evam yasi pandavaha. Yena bhutanya sheshani drakshashat manyato mai. One who has a spiritual master, having attained such mercy from a spiritual master, one sees that all living entities are part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. That's the vision of an actual devotee, seeing all living entities as part of the Supreme and that they are mine. So that means even our enemy, even the person who's trying to hurt us, even the person who's attacking us, we don't call them names, we don't do these things. We actually have to treat them accordingly. We can't let them, harm us, but we actually still have to love them. That's a genuine spiritual person. That's a genuinely spiritually advanced person. And so how can we say anything of how much we chant, whatever it is? We understand that there's offenses. There's something going on in our process if these behaviors aren't going away. So approaching a spiritual master is pariprashnena seva. It's actually the humble service. And we can take our service and it can be not service. It can be self-service. Look how much service I am doing. Look how humble I am. Look how great I am at being humble. And in that way, people may say, oh, this Prabhu is so humble, but is the heart being cleansed? You have to know for yourself. You might not be able to know, but you'll know for yourself when Vidyavanaya sampane, brahmane gavihastini, when you're actually seeing this equal vision, when you're actually beginning to love people on an equal level. And there's a result of pure devotional service. If you're doing pure devotional service, there are things that happen. That same verse we quoted, Savai Pum Samparadam, or the next verse, verse 7, it says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Yanam Chayadahaitukam. By practicing bhakti yoga to Bhagavan Vasudev, Janayat Yashu Vairagyam. From that, what is born? Jnana and Vairagya. It comes up naturally. Jnana and Vairagya come up naturally. What is jnana? It means I actually understand that you're not this body and I'm not this body. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says you start to actually experience Krishna's rasas. Furthermore, Vairagya, you're detached. What is real detachment? It means I'm using everything for Krishna. So this is the actual process of approaching a bona fide spiritual master and learning. So unless we worship the lotus feet of great devotees, worship doesn't mean I just swing some incense around and I come to Guru Puja every day. It's a type of worship, But actually, all of these kind of liturgical things we do, and that applies for all religions, all these liturgical things we do, deity worship and guru puja and these songs, these are all things that are containing immense amounts of philosophy. If you really analyze a puja, it's so much philosophy packed into a ritual so that our mind can then unpack it. We're offering the Lord the incense, which represents the earth. We're offering the Lord the fire, the water, the air. We're offering the Lord the ether with the conch. We're offering the Lord these things. We're singing songs about the principle of how do we advance. Samsara dava nalalita loka pranaya karuna gana ganatvam. We're singing about the spiritual master, Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. That's the active principle of our lives. Let us serve the Vaishnavas, the gurus. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada, he said the most important verse in all of the Vedic literatures is Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tata Garo Tasyarte Katita Kyarta Prakasata Mahatmanaha. That for one who has implicit faith in Guru and Krishna, all of the imports of Vedic knowledge are revealed. For that person who has this implicit faith in Guru and Krishna. So what to speak, you may know so many things, but it's not revealed necessarily. And we see examples of this time and time again. One of the greatest examples is Ramachandra Puri. Who's Ramachandra Puri? Anybody remember? He was in Puri.
He's the disciple or godbrother.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's a disciple of Ishwar, of Madhavendra Puri. He's a godbrother of Ishwara Puri. So he was famous for one thing. What's he famous for? Criticizing. He's famous for criticizing. And it's described that because he was so critical of devotees, his heart became hard. That's what happens when you criticize devotees. Your heart becomes hard. You become a hard-hearted guy. And we even see sometimes you see a renunciate person, not so much in the West, but sometimes in the Eastern world you see, some they're wearing saffron, but they're just like, their face is always like, you've seen it, it's like, you're like, oh my God, it's scary. Everyone talk to that guy. The hard heart. But, sometimes a devotee may be a householder, but he's very soft-hearted, which is actually the goal, because bhakti cannot manifest in a hard heart. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Madhurya Kadambini explains that extra renunciation has nothing to do with bhakti. It actually has nothing to do with it. He says like that. In the traditional sense. It has everything to do with the love for Krishna, which manifests as genuine renunciation, meaning I'm using everything for Krishna's service. And that's a soft-hearted person. So Ramachandra Puri was always criticizing. In fact, he came to Puri and he saw Lord Chaitanya is getting so much praise and attention. Naturally, what a critical person does, they see, oh, this person gave a nice class, this person led a nice kirtan. Let me go say, that was a good kirtan, but you're getting a little fat because, you're eating too much, and I can see the ants in your room, you're eating sweets, or whatever, But there's always a but. And they never say anything nice about anybody. It's always negative. So in that way, he criticized Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya being so humble and understanding that Ramachandra Puri is the godbrother of his guru, Lord Chaitanya stopped eating. And all the devotees totally hated Ramachandra Puri. They wanted him to go, but Lord Chaitanya was so humble, he just accepted. And then finally Lord Ramachandra Puri left and Lord Chaitanya went back to his regular program. But the famous story is that as Madhavendra Puri, who was the most advanced soul at that time, in fact, there are 3 personalities who are described to have Mahabhav. Anybody know the 3 personalities? Madhavendra Puri, Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya. Yeah, 3 personalities. So Madhavendra Puri is on this platform of having Mahabhav with Radharani and Lord Chaitanya. Very, very special person. So as Madhavendra Puri was leaving his body, he was singing shlokas and, crying and crying and crying, weeping because I had not attained Krishna. Right? Crying for Krishna. And Ramachandra Puri, because he was associating with Mayavadis, he was bad association, he was criticizing, he never actually worked on his envious nature. He criticized his own guru and said, "Why are you crying? You should be thinking of Brahman." So Madhavendra Puri said, "I don't want to see your face. Get out of here." On the other side of things, Ishwara Puri, he was humbly serving his spiritual master, humbly helping him, cleaning his body. He was too old, he was invalid, cleaning him, helping him, serving him nicely. And what was the result? What did Ishwara Puri get? Lord Chaitanya was his disciple. So you see, the principle is not knowledge. The principle is not these things. The principle is service. It's actually service to the devotees. That's what gives us the actual spiritual realization. And unless we understand that, we're going to be misdirected. Unless we understand the goal. It's one thing I really appreciated about my week-long association with Devaki Mataji, serving her nicely. But she really understands Bhakti Yoga. I mean, she is not in any way misunderstanding that the goal is to be some great sadhu, or the goal is to, know a million shlokas, or to boss everybody around and to make offenses. She understood that the goal is really to have this vidya vinaya sampane brahmani gavyasti shunicha vasapakecha pandita samadarshana, to have this equal vision, to have this behavior toward the devotees. And so what actually makes devotees? It's not, we can think, oh, I'm preaching, but are you preaching? What is preaching? Prabhupada said preaching means results. Preaching means results. So at least if you're not preaching, don't anti-preach by running people away from the temple. It's anti-preaching. So preaching means results. The result is people are becoming devotees. Not to do with anything you know. Because Krishna consciousness works on the platform of love. Really, it works on the platform of love. And Lord Chaitanya convinced people to become devotees not based on really his philosophy, on his behavior. The philosophy came after the behavior, and that's how it works. Is I wouldn't be sitting in this temple every day for so many years if it weren't for a devotee kindly making me feel like these people are wonderful and make me want to sit down and hear this philosophy. I liked the philosophy, but it wasn't enough to keep me. I mean, I went to the Phoenix Temple first, and not a person spoke to me the entire time I was there. And actually, Kirtanesvara Maharaj was giving the talk, and it's really an intense talk. And I was like, okay, I'm just back out here. And then I came to Tucson Temple, and Chaitanya Lila kindly spoke to me, introduced me to Mother Sundamani. And I kept coming, and I talked to one speaker one day, and he was like, "Thank you very much. Have a good day." Talked to another speaker one day, ignored me. But my Guru Maharaj, when I finally met him, he was giving the talk, and he said, I said, "I really liked your talk, Prabhu." And then he put his arm around me. He said, "What's your name? Who are you? How do you know about Krishna?" And that was what made all the difference. Honestly, that's the whole reason I stayed. Kept coming. It was just that feeling of feeling accepted and loved. That's the whole reason I stayed. And that doesn't come, that we can't fake that. That's something that comes from a genuine person who has love in their heart. Someone who has that love and bhakti in their heart. They can actually make someone feel welcomed. Even if we say all the right things, if we have that, like Mataji was explaining, consciousness emanates from the pores of our body, It's like we can try to, I'm doing nice things, saying nice things, but actually deep down, I hate you. Deep down, I'm really envious of you. And it's like, good class, Prabhu. I don't really think it because, only I give good classes, Actually, only I lead good kirtans. So in this way, a living entity who is like that is just a Kali Yuga sadhu, and there will be no result. So the result of preaching is the result. And so we see that also Lord Chaitanya, he came to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw Lord Chaitanya so beautiful, so exalted. He was in the Puri temple. And Lord Chaitanya, when he saw Lord Jagannath, he passed out. And the Chaitanya Bhagavatam described how he tried to run onto the altar. That's not in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But he passed out. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw, oh my gosh, who's this beautiful young 24-year-old sannyasi, so effulgent. He looks like God. Bring him to my house. And then they woke Lord Chaitanya. That Lord Chaitanya was dead, but they realized they put a little cotton swab to his nose, and he said, little cottons are moving a teeny bit. So he's still alive. So they said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has opened his eyes. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And in the course of the conversation, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, actually, how could you possibly stay sannyas? You're a beautiful young 24-year-old man. How could you possibly keep your vows? The only way you can keep your vows is you study Vedanta. And because I am the best Vedanta teacher in the whole world, I think you should study under me. It's described that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was like an oil cake, whatever that is, with all the oil, I don't know what that is, with all the oil pressed out of it. So he was just dried. And furthermore, before this all happened, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was with his brother-in-law, Gopinath Acharya. And Gopinath Acharya was saying, that is God himself. That is Krishna and Radha combined into one form. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, yeah, that's nice. He's a beautiful sannyasi. He's chanting, but how could you say he's God? Where in the scriptures does it say that God will appear in this Kali Yuga? God appears at the end of Kali Yuga in the Kalki incarnation. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, you will never know. You can't know he's God because, what did he say? You don't have his mercy. You don't have his mercy, therefore you can't know. So we can't understand the glory of a Vaishnava. We can't understand the glory of Krishna, the glory of Prabhupada, unless we get their mercy. So he didn't have the mercy. So then, but Gopinath Acharya, because he's a devotee and because just out of his causeless mercy, he blessed Sarvabhauma Acharya. But you will attain his mercy in due course of time. So then he spoke for 7 days to Vedanta about Lord Chaitanya. What did Lord Chaitanya do? He sat there very humbly and listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He listened very nicely. And after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I've talked for 7 days, given my whole heart to you. Don't you have anything to say? Lord Chaitanya said, yeah, I know you're Vedanta. And I know Vedanta, but what you're saying appears to be like a cloud covering the sun. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was just devastated. The Lord Chaitanya didn't go like, stop right up. I'm going to stop you right there. He didn't do that. He said, he just listened. And then Lord Chaitanya explained the real situation. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that moment, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was completely transformed. He was completely transformed. Similarly, later on Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear about Prakashananda Saraswati, great Mayavadi sannyasi with thousands of disciples. And these thousands of disciples were all Mayavadis, and they saw Lord Chaitanya and said, this is a sentimental sannyasi. He's chanting and dancing all the time. He has no knowledge. He should be studying Vedanta and being a stern, hard heart like us. And Lord Chaitanya had no desire to associate with them. One Brahmin arranged a dinner with all of the various, lunch with all the various sannyasis in Varanasi. And so Lord Chaitanya attended, and what did Lord Chaitanya do? He sat with the shoes. Yet all these Mayavadis who are worshipping Brahman were noticing, wait a minute, the Brahman is coming off that guy. So they called him over and said, you're so beautiful, so humble. And then Lord Chaitanya, by his behavior, opening their heart, he then was able to inject the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, converted them all into devotees of the Lord. So it is in the humility that we get the bhakti, that we can actually receive the knowledge of the class. The mood in which we read the Bhagavatam. Are we just reading to look really scholarly? I know so many shlokas, I can tell so many stories, I can give such good discourses, or do we actually want to serve Krishna with this knowledge? Is this actually think we're going to use this to serve Krishna? That's why I think, a lot of devotees want to memorize a lot of shlokas. It's a tip for memorizing shlokas is that when you think about how I'm going to use it and when I'm going to use it and what time and which place this shloka is going to be good to actually do a service, then those shlokas will stay with you. Otherwise, it's just like an exercise. Memorize the shloka, I forget the shloka. Because I'm not thinking. I remember when I was taken by Bhakti Shastri and I had all these, all these shlokas, and I was on the plane back from India, I was like, I'm going to connect this one to that one and this one to that one. And in this way, we can, deliver it. But anyways, if someone doesn't have that propensity, the main thing is to be a service. And it's also, in respect to brahmachari life, is like we can, the tendency for the living entity in the material world is to try to be God. Try to, become God. And so, general people, okay, I'm going to become God by, I'm now the God of this family, and then I have my Radharani and my little jivas that I've created by my enjoyment. And I'm trying to control them. And I'm miserable. And I'm clashing with my husband, my wife, because I'm the controller. And my false ego, and her, now she's not letting me be the controller, and I can't control her, she can't control me, and now we're fighting constantly. So in this way, okay, so then that doesn't work. So okay, I can see that doesn't work. So let me put on orange clothes, and everybody will think I'm a great sadhu, and people will let me go first in line and do so many things. And then, I can get up and I can give a class and I can go distribute books or whatever service you have. Then when we realize we're not the best at it, we're not so good at it, all of a sudden I don't want to do this anymore. Not as fun as I wanted. So you see how the living entity is always trying to find a way to become attached to position, becomes attached to circumstance. So the real thing is if we can just be happy being a humble servant. Can we just be happy being a humble servant? That's pure bhakti, where our attachment is not to my activity as the, leader, president, swami, teacher, whatever it is. My attachment is to Krishna. We can analyze it, especially those devotees who've been around a long time and they get some kind of, recognition, which comes in due course of time. And it's one of the stumbling blocks is bhakti. If all of that was taken away tomorrow, would you still get up and chant your rounds? Would you still, okay, now you're just a temple sweeper. Would you still be enlivened to do that? We should try to strive for the consciousness of yes, it will be, but it's not so easy. So in conclusion, I want to bring up some shlokas about this sadhu sangha, because sadhu sangha is this the point? There's a verse in the 5th canto, which we are reading, and the verse is in chapter 5, very famous chapter of the 5th canto. This is the most probably famous chapter of the 5th canto, which is the teachings of Lord Rishabhdev to his son. And very, very powerful. Okay, let's see if we can find the verse here. Here it is. Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes tamo dwaram yoshita sangi sangam mahantaste samachita prashanta vimanyava surida sadavoye. Lord Rishabhdev says to his sons, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger, and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in an abominable way. Such persons are known as Mahatmas. So by associating with those, and in the 3rd canto, and I want to go into these shlokas. The 3rd canto, there's a verse that explains that attachment to women and to those attached to women is the door to hell. But that very same attachment, when applied to a sadhu, we're all attached to material energy. But when you take that very same attachment and you attach it to Krishna, okay, so now my family are devotees, my guru, we're attached to the devotees for their service. Now, it's not a matter of just, we have to be attached actually to devotees. I'm really attached. Like I should fear, I actually fear it when I have to go out, a little bit. Too many days away, I'm actually terrified. And not that I'm advanced, but really it should scare us. So, and Prabhupada says, right, the biggest problem is we're not scared enough of Maya. So we become attached to the devotees. That very same attachment opens the doors to liberation. And then he says the very famous verse about what a sadhu is. He says, what is the verse? Tatikshava kurika surida sarvadehinam ajata shatravo shata sadhava sadhu bhushana. That a sadhu is someone who is tatikshava. He's tolerant. He's merciful. Tatikshava kurunika surida sarvadehinam. He's friendly to all living entities. Ajata shatrava shanta. He's peaceful. Ajata shatrava. His enemy was never born. He doesn't have any enemies. It's not enemy. That's my enemy, and this is my enemy. He doesn't have any enemies. Ajata shatrava shanta. Sadhava sadhu bhushana. He lives in the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. That's a sadhu. Doesn't say he is, this ashram, that ashram. He knows all this. He knows it. It's all in the behavior. It's all in the quality of the heart. Gaurkishore Das Babaji couldn't even read. So it's in the quality of the heart. And then he goes on to further say, Lord Kapila Dev says, another symptom of sadhu. This is one of those verses that gives me a little bit of anxiety. It's a really heavy verse. If I can remember it. Mayananyena bhavena bhakti yogena mayananyena bhavena bhakti yoga yedridam matkrite twaktva karmanas twaktva swajana bandhava. Describe that. Those sadhus, mayananyena bhavena bhakti yogena yedridam. They've taken a staunch vow to perform bhakti yoga. Matkrite, for my sake, matkrite twaktva karmanas. They've abandoned all materialistic activities. Twaktva swajana, they've abandoned all mundane family. Twaktva bandhava, they've abandoned all mundane friends for Krishna's sake. That's a sadhu. And then he says, very famously, he says that, verse, Satam prasangam mama virya samviro bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kata tajjosana sapavarga vartmari shradha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati. He says that sangam, that when you're in this sangha of my devotees, satam prasangam, the sangha of those who are sat, satam mama virya samviro, those pastimes, my pastimes, they're virya, they're like very powerful, like lightning bolts on the heart. Mama virya samviro. Bhavanti hrit karna. They give great pleasure to the hrit, to the heart, and to the ears. Bhavanti hrit karna rasayana. And they're full of nectar, like juice. Tajjosanat asvapavarga vartmani. Hearing those pastimes from such devotees opens the doors to liberation. And in that association, shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. One develops faith, attachment, and love for God. That is the process. That is the process. That let us come together and hear Bhagavatam in the association of those who are satam. And then we will become genuine, actually. Really, the quality of love will manifest. But if we see that, I only listen to my own classes, actually. Or, so many types of wrong consciousness. Then what question is there? How could we relish the Bhagavatam if we're always thinking about how I give a better class than so-and-so, or I'm, or criticizing? How could we actually relish Bhagavatam? Because what you're saying is actually somehow better than what this person's saying, when actually Krishna's millions of times more advanced than all of us. We can't say anything. Krishna is actually pleased by the effect, the service of giving a class, the service of speaking of Krishna, the service of preaching. So in this way, the false ego, the materialistic consciousness is deeply rooted in it. And at the beginning, it's like, okay, I'm becoming a spiritual person now. I'm a devotee. And it's like when you're a bhakta, I remember those days, you can just be like, so innocent, think, you have all these problems, but you're chanting Hare Krishna. Then all of a sudden you make some advancement, you get some position, and now all of a sudden the false ego becomes a devotee. The false ego starts to wear tilak and starts to, shave its head and put on orange clothes and wear tulsi malas. And so then the false ego is now acting. So we have to avoid that by coming back to this What are the three things? Inquiry, submissiveness, and humbleness, service. That's it. That's it. And it's by our service that we're going to go home back to Godhead. Your seva will save you. Not by, I'm trying to find a way that I can enjoy through my service. And that's why, there are ashrams. The ashrams are keeping us from enjoyment. The brahmacharis are all living in the temple. And I have, the temple presidents tell me, do this, do that, do this, do that. I have rules, regulations got to follow. Grihastha ashram means, okay, now I'm grihastha. Now I have to sacrifice for family, not independent. So in this way, we're losing our independence. But if we just find a way to become independent, no authority, no steadiness in my service. In this way, it's very difficult to actually make advancement. And then when that advancement is there, you become empowered to preach, you become empowered to do so many things. Okay, we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ian.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been thinking about this idea of doing devotional service and so forth. And I've noticed that in practical affairs, oftentimes when you want to learn about something, say in a work situation and that, you're told to, take certain steps, carry out certain actions and so forth, if you're getting trained on the job, for instance, and prior to actually having theoretical knowledge of what's going on. So you might not know why you're taking the particular steps, but you gradually learn to take the steps, and then you develop knowledge of what the theory is that underlies those steps and what the terminology means that's involved and so forth and so on. And it's that idea of, what I've been thinking about is the idea of taking action in order to develop, realized knowledge. And I think, I don't know, to me, that's what I'm beginning to understand the process of devotion to be. It's because your mind follows the actions of your body. Your mind follows what you direct your senses towards and so forth. And those are some things I've been thinking about.
Yeah, it's correct. That actually the knowledge is a result of the devotional service, not the cause. That's the point. Bhakti Devi Swarat. She doesn't even care about knowledge. Lord Chaitanya liberated a dog. The animals became pure devotees. They have no knowledge. They're not thinking that, they're not thinking about, Vedic, chapter 3 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, theology. They're not thinking like that. They're thinking, oh, this is beautiful, Lord Chaitanya, chant Hare Krishna. The tiger jumped out, Lord Chaitanya and growled, he said, chant Hare Krishna. And the tiger went, Hare Krishna. I love that. So, yeah, it's actually coming from that. And that's why we say you can chant Hare Krishna and not even know what it means. But if you keep chanting, you'll become purified. Just like, Valmiki Muni, he wrote the Ramayana. That's how intense of a sadhu he is. But actually, he was a killer. He was a serial killer. And so, he met Narada Muni, and Narada Muni said, okay, you're a serial killer. We can help you. Just chant this name, Ram. You couldn't even say Ram. He said, okay, just chant Mar, which means to kill. Just chant it. Mar, 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 mar. And so then he did that for so long, and then he became such a pure devotee, he wrote the Ramayana. So that's the power of this holy name. The power of devotional service is actually so powerful. It's prasang mama virya samvado. It's so powerful that when you do it, these things come. Knowledge comes. And so therefore it's this very, the knowledge follows the actual activity of bhakti yoga. That's a fact. Nitai.
What does it mean to actually see or treat everybody equally? Because it's a venomous snake that's envious.
See is different from treat. We don't treat everybody equally. We see everybody equally. Samadarshina, not samakarmana. Samadarshina. So it means it's all equality of the heart. And then we don't have to be offensive to people. That's the number one basis is okay, we can see that's a snake. That's a person I don't want to associate with. We don't have to sit and talk bad about them. We don't have to be offensive to them. We can acknowledge that they've done something inappropriate. We can acknowledge that I no longer want to be with that person because it's not favorable for my service. But we don't hate them. We don't sit and criticize them, talk bad about them. we have to know, that envy is subtle. So, and it also means, especially it means we're willing to give mercy to them. That's the ultimate thing. I mean, I think you're one of my best examples. I see you're very kind to most people you meet. You don't judge people in my experience. Let me give mercy to this person. And, I've heard devotees say some really crazy things about people who seem like they're really downtrodden, not understanding that a lot of our devotees are coming from that downtrodden place. And so we have to have that consciousness of giving mercy to everybody. And that's a real symptom. And even, even an animal or a spider in my room. There was a spider in my bathroom and had somehow it was in my shower and I didn't see it and I turned the water on and it became all, and it was I lifted it out and put it on the sink and it still couldn't move. It was too wet. Thought, how can I save it? So I picked it up. It was all limp and I chanted Hare Krishna to it. And I put it in an old cobweb, but when it was in the cobweb, it was able to stretch itself out and there was water dripping from it. And I was thinking, this is, only a devotee would take the time to pick the spider up and put it back in a web in your corner of your room so that then it can dry out and then you chant Hare Krishna to it. So
Yeah.
Anything else?
Someone, is a devotee that becomes envious. How do you give mercy to that person who is envious of you?
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure that one out. We just, once again, it's, they're really not envious of you. They're envious of Krishna. And I'm also envious of Krishna. So we can have compassion. It's that, if someone's envious of anybody, they're actually envious of Krishna. That's it. They're envious of, can you imagine if you're a little envious of your god brother or something because he's doing a little better than you? Can you imagine what it's like trying to do something next to Krishna? I mean, and the cowherd boys are all the same age, and so it's just no question, trying to be around Krishna with envy in our heart. So we can understand, with compassion that, this person's just suffering that. And it's we can try to, encourage them or be nice or, try to be encouraging. The tendency of two envious people, and I mean, I'm guilty of this, is that, we can understand this person's envious or they're feeling bad about themselves because they're not as advanced or something, and so we tend to even show off, we show off how realized I am and how happy I am. And actually, we lose a lot of energy thinking that way. Let me show how advanced I am. So actually, even the most advanced souls, many times they have this realization, but they're not manifesting it by, giving lots of talks or, let me dance really intensely and show how happy I am. Maybe just chill it back because it's making this person who's feeling a little envious uncomfortable. That's that's what I've thought of, because people, when they see someone, dancing is a realization. It's a realization of, Krishna consciousness, but, they're seeing people can attack that energy. So it is good to, not agitate them. That's just my thoughts on the matter. I think the biggest thing is compassion. Because we're also envious, unless we're a pure devotee. In that case, compassion still. The answer is always compassion. So we're out of time. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.